Freeman, and I have with me a special guest, Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCulloch, who has a book out, Your Leadership Legacy. And you can find his website at right here, www.ltcoakmcculloch.com.
Yeah, Nathan, and it's also available on Amazon if somebody wants to find it there as well.
Yeah, that might be easier to find it there. You're in Armored Cav. Tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Nathan. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And, it really is my passion to talk about leadership and help people as much as I can, young men and women, become better leaders. But, I graduated from high school in Northern Illinois, which is why I live in Florida, because I'm never living through winters like that again. And I went off to the United States Military Academy for a couple of years, and then I left there and finished up my education in my Army commissioning program in ROTC from Northern Illinois University. And my first 5 years, I was an infantry officer. And in my last 18 years, I was an armored cavalry officer, riding around on M1 tanks, and did a lot of teaching and a lot of that kind of stuff as well in the classroom, which kind of led me to put together the leadership presentation, which the book is based off of.
Awesome. And what would you say was the best part of your career? Is it like watching young officers become leaders and so forth?
Yeah, well, I always tell people, I loved being a leader in the Army. I loved being a platoon leader. I loved my company command time, and I had 38 months of platoon time, which, today's lieutenants are lucky if they get 12 months. I had 38 months. I had 26 months of company command time. I had 24 months of being an operations officer. And then I had 3 years of being a professor of military science, where I ran an Army ROTC program and had 170 something cadets under my command. So I loved that part of it, but just as important and just as enjoyable for me was when I was in leadership positions, was helping to mentor people to be better leaders, especially when I was a professor of military science, and you get to watch people walk in off the street with most people not even any leadership training whatsoever. And you get to watch them walk in off the street like that. And then after 4 years of giving them the things that they need to know to be a leader and the experience of actually leading things, you get to watch them walk out as a second lieutenant officer in the United States Army and go out there and do great things for the country and for the Army. And what really is satisfying is when those people stay in touch with you. And then, I still have people who I commissioned back in 2006 who still send me an email or give me a call every once in a while and say, "Hey, Colonel McCulloch, just giving you an update, doing this now." Or they'll call and say, "Hey, sir, I've got this option. What do you think?" So I love being a mentor to those young men and women as well.
Right. That's awesome. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is like in 2 Timothy 2:2, it talks about how Paul took what he taught. He learned from the apostles. And he taught Timothy, and then he told Timothy to teach those under him so they could teach others. And John MacArthur once said that the epitome of leadership is when you can teach leaders to train leaders to train leaders to train leaders.
Yes.
And, yeah. So and that's kind of where I want to take my organization is to train people so that everyone has a responsibility to become a leader at some point in their life.
Yeah, well, one of the things that in my book, one of the things I talk about is when I took over as a professor of military science at University of South Alabama, I had a great NCO who worked for me, Master Sergeant David Powell. And he and I were talking one day, and we were just talking about the enormity of what we were doing, the importance of what we were doing, developing these young men and women into leaders, not only for the Army, because a lot of people don't stay in the Army, they don't retire from the Army, or they go in the National Guard or Reserve. So they use that leadership skill in the civilian world right out of college. So we were talking, and he said, sir, and he used this quote, and I use it in my book, and I use it all the time, and it's on my wall in my office and has been since the day he told me. He said, great leadership handed down from generation to generation is what develops great nations. And you can take that word nations and you can change out company or university or department or hospital or whatever it is that you want, and that rings still the same, that it is great leadership that develops those things. And if you don't have good leadership, I tell people all the time, you show me an organization that doesn't have a good leader, and I'll show you an organization that is failing. You show me an organization that has great leadership, and I'll show you a successful organization. Because it does come down to leadership. In almost all cases, it comes down to leadership. And the other important piece of that, like you said, with the Bible verse that you talked about, it is about creating leaders. And I tell people, great leaders create leaders. They don't create followers. There's plenty of followers out there, and you don't have to create them. What you have to create is those great leaders who then will take those followers and create more leaders, because that is so important. You're right.
Right. Anyone could be a sheep.
Exactly.
So, and that's what I call the miracle of leadership is you're taking someone who's nobody, and you see them, you see potential in them. I just finished a series about Gideon, and one of the things about that stuck out to me is that when God found Gideon, well, God always knew what Gideon was, but when God approached Gideon, he was grinding grain in a wine press, hiding from the Midianites. And the first thing the angel of the Lord said is, "Greetings, mighty man of valor." Uh, Gideon wasn't a mighty man of valor at the time. He was hiding.
That's right.
But God didn't see him where he was. God didn't see the mess he was. I mean, he did, but he called him according to what he was going to be.
That's right.
And a lot of times, as we look at people who are maybe on drugs or drinking too much or whatever, we see the problems where they're at instead of where they could be in their potential. And so when God tells us to talk to that person about Christ, we're like, I don't know, But if God's telling us to reach out to someone, then God has already seen their potential and has called you to go out and reach out to them.
Yeah, and that's huge. That really is. And I take every opportunity I can to let people know that I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ, and I go to church and I do all those things. And I try to tell people, especially the people that you're talking about, that you can see needs something in their life, because it really is important. It's an important part of my life. I can tell you that right now, not only as a leader, but as a man, a husband, a father, a person. I think all those things. And one of the things I always tell people is, what I hope to do is not only develop leaders like I am now, still in ROTC in my day job for the Army, but when we talk about leadership, I look at leaders at all levels. First of all, you got to be a leader in your family. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. You got to be a leader as a father or a mother. Then you got to be a leader in your community, whatever that looks like for you in your community. And then we can start looking at being a leader of an organization, a company, whatever it is that you're going to eventually be a leader of. But you got to start where you're a leader of your own self and your own family. And if you can do that, then that's the stepping stones to get you further and further down the line.
Right. Another issue I come across when trying teach people to share the gospel is that they think that that's for other people to do. And there are people who are called to be evangelists and preachers and so forth, but they're called to do that in order to equip the saints. And in the Army, every soldier is an infantryman first, and then they have their other jobs.
That's right.
In the Marine Corps, everyone's a rifleman first, and then you have your other skill sets that you add on top of that. And so in the church, everyone should be sharing the gospel and creating disciples. That was a mandate from Christ to everybody.
That's right. It was.
But a lot of people make excuses for not doing that, and they just want to be, they just want to do this job, but they just want to be a cheerleader or just a spectator, just come to church and watch what happens. So, and then they wonder why God's not working in their lives.
Right.
If we don't participate, then we're a ship that can't be steered if you're not going out and doing stuff.
Yeah, I agree, and again, that's part about being a leader is that you not only try to get other people to do those things, but you set the example yourself. I always tell people if you're a good leader, you will never ever ask somebody to do something that you aren't willing to do, and you are out there with your people doing the things that you're asking them to do. And I've lived that through my life because I'm a firm believer, as Christ was, servant leadership, and that that is what it's all about. Is you are there to serve the people who work for you and the people you work for. That's why we make you a leader, so that you can better serve those people, both sides. We don't make you the leader so that you can have more privileges and live in a nicer house and make more money. Those things are all nice, and if that's the case, then that's great. But that isn't why we made you the leader. And it falls the same thing with the church. I mean, if you really are a Christian and you really do believe that is your duty, your task from Jesus to get out there and tell the world, especially the ones that we know really need it, all about Christ and about what we need to do.
Right. So what would you say to someone who just didn't want to do it because it makes them feel uncomfortable? How would you go about explaining that comfort level? I can be comfortable in the coffin, but that's not a good place to be, is it?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's whether it's what we're talking about here, about going out and talking about Christ, or whether it's just being a leader or making changes or whatever, we all feel uncomfortable. And I always tell people that's when you generally grow the most, is when you're uncomfortable. If you're comfortable, you're probably not growing any because you're not challenging yourself. But I always tell people, it's all about your attitude. Are you willing to go out and do things, try new things, experiment, grow as a person, grow as a Christian, grow as a leader? If you're willing to do those things, if you're willing to take chances and grow, then you'll start feeling more comfortable doing those things. We're all uncomfortable in the beginning when we do things, usually. Very few people can, first time they do something, they do it as great, and they feel comfortable doing it. That's not the average person. That is not even most of the people, not even average. That is very rare that happens. So, you got to grow into it. But the only way to do that is to start doing it. And I kind of equate that when I talk to young men and women, when you're trying to develop your leadership ability, never turn down a chance to be a leader. Because that's when you're going to lead and you're going to learn. You can read about leading all you want. I can tell you about leading all you want, but until you lead, you're not going to get it, and you're never going to get better at it. And the same thing with going out and talking about Christ. You're never going to feel comfortable doing it if you don't do it. You'll get more comfortable the more you do it.
Right. So, like going to the gym, if you come away from the gym and you're not hurting, you didn't you didn't do anything.
That's right. That's right.
So, um, so I think one reason that people join the Army or any organizations, they want to be part of a community. They want to be seen. They want to be something bigger than themselves, and maybe they don't see evangelism as part of that. But there's a lot of leadership opportunities in sharing the gospel and then making disciples and creating leaders out of people who were lost and without purpose, really. Um, how do you think, how would you inspire someone to become part of something bigger than themselves, part of a bigger organization? What do you think is um, what is it about an organization that makes people want to join it?
Yeah, so I mean, there's that old adage that people join your organization because of leadership, because of good leadership, but they leave because of bad leadership. And I think that, one of the things that we have to do, people are motivated to do all kinds of things for different reasons. And I always tell people, if you're trying to get people to be motivated, then a couple things. Number one, you need to treat people the way they should be treated. And that's and in our world, when we're talking about Christianity, the golden rule: treat people as you would, and as Jesus said, love thy enemy, love your neighbor as you love me. And so I think those are the right answers there. But then you also got to find what motivates people, gives them a sense of purpose. Because most people who are motivated, it's not because of money or any of that kind of fame or any of that. Most people are motivated by what you just said. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And the way to figure out what motivates people in those organizations, in an organization that you're in, whether that's the church, the Army, some company, whatever, is to find out what makes your organization unique. And I use this example. When I was in the Army, when I was an officer in the Army, in the combat arms, infantry and armor, I never had any problems motivating people. If I got a task and we had to do something, all I had to do was walk in and say, "Hey guys, hey gals, this is what we got to do." And we defend the American way of life. We defend the Constitution of the United States. We are on the front line of America, defending our loved ones. Motivated people never had a problem. You know what? That didn't work at the food bank. Go figure. So, I struggled for a little bit. You would think that you'd be able to figure it out very easily, but I struggled just a little bit. And then one day at a meeting, we were at this planning meeting where we were planning out this huge food drive, handing out food in about 3 weeks. And it was one of the largest ones we did every year. And we're going through the meeting, planning everything. And all of a sudden I see people closing their books and shuffling around like they're getting ready to leave. And I said, "So what are you doing?" I said, "We're not done here yet." And they said, "But boss, it's 4 o'clock. It's time to go home." I said, "But we're not done." And I said, "But it's 4 o'clock. It's time to go home." I said, "Okay, anybody who wants to leave, you can leave. Go ahead." I said, "But let me make one thing very clear to you. 3 weeks from now, when we hand out this food, when we go for this food drive and we hand it all out to people, when some 19-year-old young lady has to go home and can't feed her 2-year-old daughter because we didn't get this right, you are to blame." How many people you think left that meeting? 0. I got it. I figured it out. I figured out what made them unique and what motivated them and what drove them to be a part of that organization, which was something bigger than themselves. But I figured it out. And once I did that, my job got a lot easier.
Right. I know, like, I served in the 82nd, and we love the beret and the black boots and all that, the wings and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we had a soldier there who before he was a paratrooper, he was in the he was in the cavalry down in Fort Hood. And of course, you know, like you, that the big hats, the braids, the giant pets, the largest pets
Yeah.
in the army. I mean, they had the spurs, the
Yeah.
sword, the saber, and all that stuff. Like, and he was more proud of that than he was in being in the 82nd. And I was kind of envious. It's like because that was a better organization, and there's more pride and less stress.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it comes down to esprit de corps, and that's what I always tell people. You know, I loved being an infantryman. I loved it, but I really, really loved being an armored cav guy. And one of the reasons was um, because of that esprit de corps. Everybody, if you're in a cav unit, I don't care what branch you're from, I don't care what your MOS is. When you're in that unit, you are a cavalryman or a woman, and you wear
Right.
the Stetson, you wear the spurs when you earn them. You wear the calf boots. I mean, all those things that make you a part of that organization. It makes you proud of being a part of that organization. And the 82nd has that, and the 101st has that somewhat, and all
Right.
organizations do. But I think the CAB does it very, very well.
Yeah. I think they do it better, but
Yeah.
he certainly seemed to think so. Um, what would you say to someone who doesn't feel like they're being seen?
Yeah. You know, I guess one of the things that you got to, this is what I tell people. I said, you know, part of the problem, if you don't think you're being seen, is maybe part of it is your problem, that you're not getting out there and trying to make yourself be seen. Not to make yourself feel like or seem like you're the best thing that got ever created or the best thing since sliced bread, but at least show some confidence. And one of the things I always tell people, you know, the young cadets who are going to be lieutenants, and if I see somebody has a confidence problem, I said, I pull them aside and I said, hey, listen, if you don't think you're good, then why should I think you're good? And why should your soldiers think you're good? And that goes to any profession. If you're the boss and you don't think you're good, then why should anybody else? And I think part of that is that you got to have that confidence in yourself. That, again, not everybody has that. You can develop it, and it's going to make you uncomfortable in the beginning, but eventually you're going to get to the point where you're very comfortable displaying that you are confident. And if you do that, then I think people will start to notice you. And even in large organizations, and even if you aren't the president or the leader or the best person doing the job, as long as you're confident, then people will start to notice you.
Right. So how do you develop that confidence?
You got to do, like you said, you know, if you're uncomfortable doing something, then you got to do it. And then the more
Right.
you do it, the more confident you're gonna be, the more you're gonna develop that confidence. And that's with everything. You know, whether it's playing a sport, you know, if you're going to play basketball, you got to shoot free throws because the only way you're going to get good at it and get confident that you're good at it is to shoot free throws, and just everything like that. You know, I played baseball most of my life as a young man and in college, and I always tell people this story. You know, my father would go to every game he could in baseball, and I played all, you know, a whole lot of baseball, and like I said, I played in college. All my life of playing baseball, my father only told me I played a good game one time. I went 4 for 4. I hit a home run and I threw a one hitter in one game. And he told me I played a good game, which made me feel really good. Most of the time, even if I played a good game, he would, when I get home, he'd say, okay, Oak, you played you did okay, but we need to work on your ground balls to your right or to your left or throwing from a different position or pitching. You know, you got to throw this pitch and we got to work on that pitch, whatever. And a lot of people would take that and be discouraged by it. And I got to probably admit that the first few times that he did that, and I watched my buddies get praised by their father, even though they didn't play as good a game as I might have played. I probably got discouraged a couple of times. And then I finally just said, okay, why is he doing that? And the reason he's doing it is to make me better. And the only way I'm going to get better and get more confidence is to get out there and do it, even if it makes me feel uncomfortable in the beginning. And I think that that's what we got to make sure that people understand, is that you're going to be uncomfortable, but the only way you're going to get better is to do it.
Right. Like I tell my kids, I'm busting your chops because I believe you are capable of doing better and being better.
Absolutely.
If I didn't think you were capable of being better, I wouldn't waste my time.
That's right.
Just send you off to orphanage and find a new kid or something,
Or just, or just, as a leader, my father-in-law has this saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And that, that really is true, because as a leader, you find those people who are already confident and you keep piling stuff on them because you're going to get the job done. They're going to get the job done. But that's the wrong answer as a leader. And we got to be very careful that like you were saying, part of our job is to develop people. And you got to find those people. You got to use the people who get your job done. I got it. But you also got to take the time to develop those people who might be struggling, who might, if you give them a chance and give them some training and give them some opportunity, might be as good as the person you're going to every single time to get the job done.
Right. Yeah, I just struggle with that. It's like I had some NCOs that didn't believe in me, and they had nicknames for me that I can't repeat.
Yeah.
Like the F-bomb Freeman was a favorite, and I didn't produce for them very well because I didn't feel like they had confidence in me, and that became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely.
When you treat people like crap, they're going to act like crap. So
Absolutely. There's that quote, and I can't remember right off the top of my head who said it, but it said, treat people as they are, and they will remain as they are. Treat them as they can be, the way that they can be, and they will become that. And I absolutely agree with that. Now, is that everybody? No, absolutely. We all know that. There's some people out there, no matter what you do, you're not going to help them because they don't want to be helped. But the ones that want to be helped, if you give them the opportunities and you give them the training, because that's part of a leader's job, is to train the people who work for you. If you do that, then you'll be surprised. You will be absolutely surprised that some of those people that you thought had no capabilities whatsoever will actually rise to the top and become some of your best people.
Absolutely. Well, I could talk to you all day, but we are out of time. So I will thank you, Colonel.
Well, thank you, Nathan. I appreciate you having me on the show, and I hope that what we talked about today helps some people.
All right, appreciate it. Well, I'll sign off, and thank you for joining us on Wildfire.